Hey, time to shine today, Varsity Squad. It is Scott Ferguson, and I've got kind of a really good friend now. His name's Ryan Stanley, and he is a person that, entrepreneur. He's going to help you level up. He's helped thousands of other people level up. And again, I mentioned he is a lifelong entrepreneur who is known for his impressively natural ability to connect with, understand, and empower those who are willing to make significant changes in their personal and professional lives. Notice that he says willing to. He
Yeah.
wants people to be there, be mindful as he takes them on. We're going to dig into that as well. He is certified through the Institute for Professional Excellence, the IPEC, which is fantastic. And he did that in 2009. He has changed the lives of hundreds of clients from all walks of life. And also, he's an author, published author of his book, Be Patient, Be Present, Be Joyful. The link will be in the show notes to the link to purchase his book. But I'm also going to do a giveaway, which we'll talk about at the end when Ryan talks a little bit about his book. And Ryan, welcome to the squad. If you could introduce yourself, but first, what's your favorite color and why?
First, I would say my favorite color is a happy middle, somewhere between blue and purple.
Blue, purple.
Why?
All right.
I don't really know for sure. It's just something that I think at an early age just kind of stuck out to me, and I wish I had a better answer than just for the.
No, man, it's regal. It's royal, bro. That's awesome.
Maybe that's it.
That's
I love it when I see it.
And Ryan's my Jersey guy up there, man. That's fantastic. I love what I do because I get to talk to people. Earlier I was on with someone from Australia, and I got my Jersey East Coast guy here. I love it. I love it. I love it. So Ryan, let's get to the origins, man, of where you were as an entrepreneur and how you really kind of maybe segued that into really wanting to service and help people through coaching.
Yeah, happily. And again, first of all, just let me just share a little bit of gratitude. Scott, thank you for having me.
Man.
Thanks, Ryan. All week, and appreciate being here.
Appreciate it.
So yeah, man, I mean, I've always been a little bit of a lifelong entrepreneur, to be honest with you. My father was an entrepreneur, sometimes for better, for worse type of a scenario.
Right.
Certainly some long years, some lean years, but I think at a very early age, I just had the understanding that it was a possibility, and that's kind of what was an option always, to start your own thing and create your own thing. And so my first entrepreneurial endeavor, I think, was when I was maybe 18, and I got involved with a multi-level marketing direct sales organization. And through that, I started reading Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
Yeah.
And that obviously helped me level up a little bit. I'm what I call a little bit of an ADD entrepreneur. I'm always working on something. I see entrepreneurialism as an art form. I think when you look at artists, you look at musicians, you look at sculptors, painters, whatever, there are people who are able to start with nothing and have an image or something in their mind that they want to create and make the time to put it out there and create it for the world to see. And entrepreneurs are no different.
Sure.
They are people who make time to create something that will ideally create service of some sort to the world and get paid for it, right? But it starts off with an idea.
That's interesting that you said that, brother, because artists, like I suffer from this myself. Artists, like even Van Gogh, there is like 72 like paintings or canvases that he never finished. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, like legitly, I mean, he didn't live a long life, but he never finished. And being an ADD entrepreneur, which I am too, I'm a great starter. I'm a great initiator. Do you ever have problems being, and admittedly so, being an ADD entrepreneur, finishing to where you have to bring on somebody else to help you with the finish, or do you see it all the way through? Just curious.
Yeah, great question. I think it's a combination of both. I do see it through, but I think the benefit of bringing in other people to help focus specific areas, depending on what the project is, depending on what the business is certainly helpful.
Okay.
So some of my projects, kind of to answer your question when I say both, some of my projects, it's not that I give up on them or stop spending time on them as much as they take longer than they probably could have because of my distractibility.
Right.
And then so sometimes it's just about bringing somebody in to delegate. We touched on that before the actual show started, but delegate some of the efforts that need to get done. Beautiful. Which in itself is a lesson in entrepreneurship.
In itself, the delegation part. So let's get into the story of when you started, segueing into coaching.
Yeah, happily. So 2008, I had an artist management company. I was working with bands. I used to manage a bunch of bands. Wow. And loved it. I'm a huge fan of live music in general. Yes, big Fish nerd, super Fish nerd. Seen them over 100 times, but just in general, love live music, love being around the energy of live music, love watching people improvise. One of the things I love most about life is the ability to be here now and improvise with life. And so musicians that are able to do that are, I'm naturally a fan of. So I was working with musicians, and what I loved most about it was the empowerment, was helping these often young people recognize that there are opportunities, that they can set big goals. It's interesting, you know, we talked about entrepreneurship being a form of art, but a lot of people don't realize musicians are actually entrepreneurs, right?
Absolutely.
They don't take the time to think about that, but they are creative entrepreneurs. They're creating a product that they want to sell to the masses for income. And so I, being a lifelong entrepreneur, loved approaching these young artists and musicians from a space of entrepreneurship and kind of helping them see what their options and their goals were. I didn't necessarily like dealing with shady club owners. And I didn't, if I was working with a band and half the members didn't want to show up to practice on time or whatever, there were aspects that turned more into babysitting than it was really about working together as a team, and a couple other things that I didn't love about it. And I'm a firm believer that you can love your job and you can love every aspect of your life if you choose to, and remind yourself of what that looks like every day. So in October of 2008, I think it came up 3 times in the same month. Somebody mentioned the term coaching. And I was like, you know what, that is what I do. That's what I love. That's who I am. I didn't know it necessarily, but that's definitely aligns with who I am and how I want to serve. Mm-hmm. And so I started doing some research, and, you know, as you mentioned, I enrolled in IPEC in 2009 and still worked with musicians. I was able to get rid of all the things I didn't like about working as an artist manager and keep all the things that I did love, as well as learn a lot about myself along the way. So, I mean, next to parenthood, coaching is the most fulfilling thing I've ever done. I will absolutely do it on some level for the rest of my life. They are both places where you are teaching and learning at the same time, consistently. And yeah, I absolutely love it.
Do you still coach musicians?
I do. Yeah, I have clients who I don't just work with musicians. The first part of my career worked specifically with musicians, first 5 or 6 years. I then was asked to become the first ever internal coach for IPEC. So I coached their staff. Wow. Everyone from entry level to CEOs to the C-suite, I was coaching. And so that was able to I was able to kind of spread my wings a little bit in the diversity and types of people I was able to in coaching.
Right.
And so since then, I've coached doctors, I've coached authors, I've coached, you know, people in all walks of life. But yeah, I certainly still work with musicians. That's kind of where I started, and I have a lot of referrals in that space as well.
Gotcha. You hear that, Squad? He started out where he was niched in, where he was comfortable, and then inch by inch, it's essentially kept growing his business. Now he's handling, you know, multi-million-dollar earners. That's fantastic, man. Thanks for sharing that, Ryan. Real quick, you know, what do you think makes a great coach?
Yeah, of course. Me often, I think what makes the best coach are people who are truly able to hold the client's agenda at all times. I mean, obviously there's some basic stuff that comes to mind from anybody who might assume it's like listening is good, reflecting is good, you know, that type of the ability to be present with people, it certainly makes a big difference. But in the grand scheme of things, a coach, what makes a coaching relationship powerful in general is their ability to hold your agenda. A lot of the time we have friends, we have family, we have other people who love us. And if we're looking for guidance, they have their own agenda, which is sometimes that they love us. Sure, but it also is based on their fears and their background and their limiting beliefs and things that hold them back. They are going to be presenting to us because their agenda is they love us and quote unquote don't want us to get hurt based on their life experience.
I've never heard that, hold the agenda. I've never heard that. That's fantastic. So you're actually putting their needs, and I'm doing that in air quotes, people, if you're listening, you know, their needs first. You know, to be able to work around them to help them still level up their lives, right?
Yep. And by doing that, you know, because so if a client comes to me and I'm working with them, 2 things. One, I don't have their fears. I don't have their blocks. I don't have their limiting beliefs. I'm focused exactly on what they said they want to accomplish. And that is their agenda, right?
That's awesome.
So if I hold that up, sometimes, and for new coaches out there, we might even say, it's like, am I asking the right questions? Am I being a good coach? You know what? That is my agenda, believe it or not. Like if I'm sitting there spending any time during my conversation focused on that stuff, I am not present with the client. The other point that comes up is sometimes the human nature in us wants to ask questions that are more serving of our agenda, like just curiosity or even in a sense from human nature, nosiness. But if we can avoid all of that and truly stick to what the client's outcome wants, you know, what the client wants their outcome to be and focus on that at all times, sometimes you don't ask questions that have nothing to do with the outcome, and it helps you to stay focused and help people move forward.
I love that. So if I'm out at a networking event, which in South Florida, we're allowed to do a little bit down here, press some flesh and meet some people, you know, what am I listening for someone to say that would make them a great referral, contact, or connection for you, Ryan?
You know what, and you kind of touched on it. And by the way, thank you for asking that question. You touched on it at the beginning. I think people who are willing to take some steps, willing to take daily action, physical, mental, spiritual, emotional action, who are ready to live a different life, who are ready to change the trajectory of their life, and are, able to recognize that they haven't been able to do it on their own. It doesn't make them a bad person. Everybody's exactly who they should be for every single second of life they've lived up until this moment. Your past does not equal your future, but sometimes it'll equal your present. And so if you want to shift that and you're looking for somebody to help you, guide you, to ask you questions you hadn't thought to ask yourself, somebody who spent a lot of time focused on mindset and has changed lives, and I'm your guy.
Beautiful. No, I love that. I love your confidence. I love that you put it that way too, that they need to be ready in a sense, to take action mentally, physically, spiritually, etc. So when you're bringing someone on, if you don't mind sharing some of your secret sauce, you're bringing someone on, whether discovery or you've taken them, on as a client, what is some of your secret sauce to helping them find their blind spots?
First is recognizing two things, fear and judgment. All right. So typically most people's blind spots come from fear. And first I'll caveat this, not even caveat, I will also say that fear is a liar, just as kind of a point before I forget to say it. Really, really important for people to recognize. But a majority of people's blocks and limiting beliefs come from fear of what others think, right? So in some capacity, you're worried what someone else somewhere else thinks. And so I'm afraid to step outside my comfort zone because I might be then, which leads to part B, judgment. I'll be judged as good or bad.
Right.
And so when we are at any point concerned about what someone else thinks, it keeps us in a box and keeps us from really being our true self and reaching our greatest levels.
That's fantastic that you say that. That's something I resonate. I did a whole podcast on, I was taught by my mentors to live in the duality of life, where one, as long as you're not hurting someone or judging them or demeaning them, don't give a shit what anyone thinks about you at all, as long as you're not hurting anybody. And then that also comes to the duality of serving the most people as you can. That's how, I coach my clients, and I think that's how I love that the blind spot, that the fear, can lead to judgment of themselves. That's fantastic. That's one of the best answers I've ever freaking had of that. So is there any good, when you're bringing somebody in, we'll go back kind of the discovery period. Is there any good, how do I say this? Any good questions that you wish they would ask you, but never do?
I don't know. That's a great question. I think everybody's journey is so unique. So I can't say that anything comes to mind to answer your question. Is there any question they ask me? Because the cool thing about being a coach is it's really never, ever about me. Right. In any sense. I literally have, been working as a coach for 10 years. And the amount of times I've had anybody ask me about anything about myself, literally is one hand I could ask. And it's typically, in that case, it's typically after our calls or after our coaching relationship ends and we become friends, then we talk a little bit. So really most people, I think it's what's important for them to ask themselves these questions. Am I ready to change? Am I willing to step up? Do I recognize that I have the ability to be whoever it is that I want to be?
Love that.
There's a lot of powerful questions in general they can ask.
I'd be asking about your fails, man. Send me somewhere you failed forward and be like, how did you get over it? And how are you going to help me? That's just something that, I have coaches and I ask them even now, and I've had one for 5 years. Be like, dude, tell me about that one again, But hey, so let's get in our DeLorean with Marty McFly. You know who that is, right? Back to the Future. Yeah. Let's go back to the 22-year-old Ryan Stanley. What kind of knowledge nuggets are you dropping on Ryan with the experience that you have now to maybe help him shorten his learning curve or level up quicker? Sure.
So the identity of 22-year-old Ryan was somebody who drank a lot, not necessarily in an abusive space, and it wasn't like 7 days a week, but Thursday through Sunday, like I was partying quite a bit. I identified as someone who felt like I needed to be the life of the party, or I needed to have other people's approval or to like me as a person. Like that's what got me going. Like that's who I wanted to be. I was always a bit of an entrepreneur, so I like building businesses, but really at the end of the day, most of my focuses was around being on other people so I could feel their love in some capacity.
It's almost like what you just talked about with people's blind spots, right? It's like the fear and judgment, right? That's cool. Yeah. So what would you tell them?
I would say spend less time on that and more focused on exactly who you want to be for the rest of your life. And that can change, and it's okay that it changes. But really, if you make more time choosing to be present, choosing to create something that will serve others, and work hard towards that type of an outcome, I promise you in the end, it'll be worth it. And you'll get there sooner than later.
Love that. Love it. And Ryan, we talk a little bit here, a lot about the dash, that little line that's in between your incarnation date and your expiration date. You know, how do you want your dash remembered? How do you, maybe your epitaph or your legacy statement?
Yeah. And that's, you know, we touched on my book, but that was part of the reason that I wrote that is as a piece of a legacy. I think I want to be known as somebody who lived on purpose every day and inspired others to do the same. You know, like I said, my most important thing in my life is being a father. And that's in the sense that I want to be remembered as somebody that guided their children to be that as well, and to live on purpose.
I love it. It's a total go-giver mentality. And you have 2 boys, I think I read on the website.
Yep, 9 and 6.
9 and 6. The handful?
Enough to keep me busy, yeah.
I love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. So what are 3 things that Ryan can't live without?
Oxygen, sunlight, and gravity.
Okay. Very good. Hey, I'll take that. That's fine. I'll add chicken wings in there, though.
Right. Maybe a little bit of bacon. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You know, I say that intentionally, and I don't want to distract too much, but really just the concept of those. I do think about those 3 things often, like daily, like the sense that when I wake up every single morning, there's oxygen, there's sunlight, there's gravity, just so that I can exist.
It's gratitude, baby.
There right?
Go.
And when I recognize that, and I recognize that today is a gift, every single day is a gift, no matter whether it's a global pandemic or not. Like life is happening for me. My consciousness is here today, with sunlight, gravity, and oxygen, so that I can exist. What am I going to do with it? So not only can I not live without those things, but I cannot live without the awareness of those things. I know it sounds obvious, but really when you make the time to think about it, it brings you to the present and gives you the opportunity to really
the miracle that we're able to exist like we are. Take advantage of that, you know, and help as many people out as you can to realize that as well. So Ryan, what's one thing you know for sure?
One thing I know for sure is that your thoughts are things. And if you recognize, you combine that with the fact that life is happening for you and you choose your thoughts wisely, they will lead you to where exactly whatever it is you want to be.
Love it. Love that. Love it. Love it. So what would be your definition of a life well lived?
A life well lived is someone who decides who they want to be, and is open to that changing and growing. You don't have to decide right away, depending on where you're your age, where you are in your life, where your relationships are. But decide who you want to be, take action on it every single day, and simultaneously being the light you want to see in the world.
Love it. Love it. That's beautiful. So as we wind things down just a little bit, we're going to do our leveling up lightning round.
I'm ready.
And so I'm going to ask you 5 or 6 questions. I could talk for an hour on each one of these, but I need 5 seconds and real quick answers with no explanations. You ready?
I'll do my best.
All right, here we go. What's the best leveling up advice you ever received?
Be here now.
I love it. Share one of your personal habits that contributes to your success.
I wake up every morning. I meditate for an hour. I then exercise. I then do what I call my I am statements, where I focus on who I am creating. I then stretch, and then I journal, meaning I start every day mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally on purpose.
Love it. So morning routine is beautiful. Awesome. So other than your website and, of course, timetoshinetoday.com, my shameless plug, what website do you like to go to level up?
Gosh, I sound so bland, but YouTube, man, there's so much amazing out there, right?
Some people just say Google. I'm like, hey, that works for me. This is a website. So not what you wrote, not what you're reading now, not the flavor of the month. What's that go-to book? If I was to come to you and say, Ryan, man, I'm in the doldrums, I'm just a little lost, what's the book that you're handing to them?
Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Wow. Okay. Excellent. I have to look that. I have not read that. That's new to me.
Yeah, and then there's another. He's written about 4 books. Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself is a great entry level. It's a little bit heady because he's very scientific, but and then the second one is Becoming Supernatural, and either one of those.
Beautiful.
Be amazing.
What's your most commonly used emoji when you text?
Just smiley face. I'm not a big emoji guy, man.
I'm not either. Just had to ask.
Yeah.
So not wisdom wise and knowledge wise, physical wise, what age would you be for the rest of your life if you could be?
I feel like 25.
There. Yeah. I'm like between 28 and 32 is my jam. Yeah. It's kind of nice. What's your favorite charity and or organization you like to give your time and or money to?
Mockingbird Foundation.
What does that do?
They supply musical instruments to schools throughout the country who can't afford them.
Love it. Love it. Last question. This will resonate with you. It's a little harder, but what's the best decade of music? 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s?
That is a difficult one for me to answer. I cannot come up with a
No
best.
problem. No problem.
I have to, if I was forced to, I would say 70s, because I think there was so much that came out of the 60s.
So much in the 70s. Yeah. That's what I always answer, man. I'm almost 50. So it's like, 70s was my jam. My dad was friends with Bob Seger. I mean, so we used to freaking hang out with them and just be able to listen to people that we were around at that time. But tell us a little bit about Be Patient, Be Present, Be Joyful.
Yeah, happily. So it's Be Patient, Be Present, Be Joyful. There's a subtitle of A First Aid Kit for the Emotional Bumps, Scrapes, and Bruises of Life. And I mention that now because it's exactly what it is. It was written with two purposes. One, that you can, so first of all, it's not a long read. You could probably read it in about 35 minutes. Okay. It's intentionally created to be short. I'm not one who, as we mentioned, being an ADD entrepreneur, I'm also an ADD reader. So I'm not one who wants to read 300 pages. Right. Amazing books out there that have a ton of information. I'm not awesome at reading them. Gotcha. So I wanted something that if I or someone like me was having a tough day, they could pick up and really just get something out of, from a layman's terms, from a conversational perspective. And so this book was written with two purposes. One, that you can read straight through it and gain some concepts on how anybody can create patience, they can create presence, they can create joy just in their everyday life. And then, when you kind of read through it, you have an understanding of what those steps look like in any given day. But then B, as a first aid kit, if you're having a stressful moment, it's, in fact, for those who see it on YouTube, it's a smaller book. You can literally carry it on you. And it was created and physically written to where you can open any page and find something that will be highlighted or stand out to you as a quote or as a blurb or as a message or as a bolded text to serve you in that moment. So if you're feeling stressed and overwhelmed, you don't have a lot of time to read a book, you can just open it up and find a page and then it'll serve you.
How are you enlightened to write it? Meaning, like, who's your inspiration?
My inspiration was me, meaning in the sense that I recognized these challenges in myself. I wrote this book as much for me as I did for the rest of the world, but also a combination of seeing after 10 years, my clients having these basic, and I don't say that in a belittling sense, but these basic needs of understanding the value of patience and the ability to create presence and to actually know that it's possible to create joy on command if you really want to, and you build that a practice as well.
Love that.
Love it. So my inspiration was
on command. That's beautiful, and be able to carry it with you as well. And Squad, I'm going to give away a book. When you listen to this, go over to the Time to Shine Today. It's facebook.com/Time to Shine Today. It's all one word, and then leave a little message in the link about this podcast. I think you've found some serious knowledge nuggets here. So when you do that, I'll DM you and we'll get a signed copy out directly here from Mr. Ryan Stanley. So Ryan, where else can we find you?
You can find me at ryanstanley.com. That's where most of my coaching and speaking and stuff like that is. You'll see my.
It's an impressive website. I like it.
Thanks, man.
Yeah.
So you can find me there. You can also buy a copy of my book there as well. If you do, you'll also get a signed copy directly. And depending on my availability, that'll come with a complimentary coaching session. But you can also find the book on Amazon and wherever books are sold.
Sure.
Quickly, I will just share two other plugs. I've got another t-shirt company called setlisttees.com.
Okay.
And so it's for fans of live music. It's like a unique piece of art featuring the date from your favorite concert on the front. And then the set list from that concert is going to be on the back. So, fish nerds like myself, you see the band 100 times, you want to remember certain ones and certain orders of songs they played. And then teachmetosell.com is another, it's a sales training company that I started this year, specifically working with service-oriented solopreneurs, or what I call SOSs. I have a partner in that. And a lot of the time, coaches, consultants, fitness instructors, people who want to serve, even in direct sales, essential oils, they have this concept where they want to serve the world. They want to just be a life changer. And now they get their certification or whatever it is. And now all of a sudden someone asks them how much they cost and they freak out and they get uncomfortable and they get nervous and they never planned to be a salesperson. And now somehow they have to be. And so we train people to recognize that you really stop selling and start serving.
That's a heck of a URL to own.
That was a sign. I was like, okay, this is it. I'm in.
That's it, man. That's fantastic. Hey, Brian, leave us with one last knowledge nugget that you want the squad to take with them, internalize, and take action on.
I'll dial it back to Napoleon Hill. Make time today to write down exactly who you want to be in all areas of your life. Physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, financially, in a relationship. Write it down. If it takes you an hour, if it takes you 2 hours, I promise you it'll be worth it. After you write it down, make time to be grateful for that outcome and believe that it's a possibility. Create gratitude for the outcome and spend time in that space with an elevated emotion. Next day, tomorrow, wake up in the morning and read that out loud with gratitude for the outcome.
I still have it up there, and I have my index card from the first time I wrote it in 2000, year 2000. It said, by this year, I will have in my possession, so much money, and I will do this by, it's like, I still have it. I've surpassed that index card, but it still sits in my Napoleon Hill Think and Grow Rich book. Like literally I'm looking at it from right here. So folks, you just got a free masterclass from my good friend Ryan Stanley, who is admittedly an ADD entrepreneur, but he still sees things through delegation, the fantastic quality to have. If you're going to hire him, just remember, he's going to hold your agenda at heart, and he's going to coach from his heart to work your agenda to help you level up. And he's looking for people that are willing to take daily action, mentally, spiritually, physically, and on to help level up. He's going to remind you to don't live in fear. Fear is a freaking lie. Okay. And, if you do live in fear, you're going to fear, and then you're going to feel like you're being judged. So he's going to help you level up from that when you take him on as your coach, which I strongly recommend you do. He's going to remind you to focus on who you want to be. He lives on purpose and always inspires others to do the same. He will remind you that thoughts are things, so choose your thoughts wisely. So make sure you pick up his book. Also check out Setlist Tees. All this stuff will be in the show notes. And then also Teach Me to Sell. Ryan, thank you for coming on, man. You're humble, you're hungry, you're leveling up your health, you're leveling up your wealth. You're part of our squad now. You can't go anywhere. So really, really appreciate you, brother.
Guy, I appreciate you as well, man. It's really, really my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Chat soon.
Cheers.